Everybody's had a chance to get a snack. Thanks to Commissioner Satterfield for helping us with the snacks. This is awesome. Really appreciate everyone turning out for our candidate forum tonight. It's a little bit after 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'll tell you a little bit about what the format will be tonight. I'll be moderating the discussion, so I'll give the candidates an opportunity to tell us who they are and a little bit about themselves. I've got a couple of questions that I'll ask them, maybe one question to let them kind of frame up for themselves. But a lot of this time, I think, will be for questions from the audience. And so we want to make sure that our citizens have an opportunity to interact with the candidates. I think it makes sense to ask a question and let each candidate have an opportunity to answer. So this will take a little bit of time. I'm going to try to time the candidates just so that we make sure we use the time well. We'll do a trial of that with the questions that I have, and then we'll see how that goes. We've also got some cards on the table back here. If you would like to ask the candidates a question and you don't want to come to the microphone, I'm happy to read your question. So feel free to grab a card if that works better. You can pass it up here. Maybe Mr. Ogle will help me with that. And that's how we're going to operate tonight. All right? So with that, and while I take my seat, and I think the other thing we're going to do is each time we start a new question, we'll start with a different candidate leading off, so that way we're not always turning to the same candidate to answer first. So we'll start over here with Mr. Oldham, and then we'll, as each question goes, we'll kind of go down the road and let everybody have a chance to go first. Candidates, does that sound all right?
Yeah. You guys hear me okay?
All right, so I think we're going to try 2 minutes for each question. So actually, let's do 3 minutes for the first time where the candidates will introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about why you're running for city council.
And I get to lead off, right?
Yes, sir.
Great. A little nervous. All right. Hey guys, thank you all for being here. I'm excited to be on this stage and excited to be sitting next to all you folks. I'm really excited to be running for a seat on Townsend City Commission. My name is Houston Oldham. Like many of you know me in this room. I know most of you. Honestly, it's what I love about living here in Townsend, and one of the reasons. We're a small, quiet town. My family, all of us, some of us in the crowd live here. We work here. We choose to play here. I could live really here all the time. My house is here. We go to the grocery store here. Sure, I might want to go to Costco or the farmer's market or something, but we're happy to be here in Townsend really all the time. So I think it's important for all of you to hear that I'm not up here to bring other places here into our town. Things are going to find their way here, but we have work to do as a local governing body to ensure that our town remains a quiet, family-friendly place to live and to visit. Some of you may know my wife and my kids sitting back here. I'll take the award for the only kids in the audience. Leon, my oldest, starts in Townsend Elementary in, 3 weeks or so. Unlike you guys in many ways, I want to raise my kids in this town. I want my family to have a safe town and a safe school. I want all of us to be cordial and to work towards the betterment of our community so that our kids and our grandkids can turn out better than us and to see the best in humanity. I'm running for a couple reasons. One is because I believe this town needs updated leadership, someone who isn't swayed by the extreme voices on both sides of our debates. We're a town with deep history. This cove has been inhabited for thousands of years. Just ask Richard Way, he'll tell you it's been inhabited for 9,000 years. We must respect the heritage from which we come. If you vote for me, you'll be choosing a candidate who prioritizes conversation and compromise above ideology and ego. Townsend needs to come together and work towards a shared future now. I'm running because I want my kids to grow up in a town that echoes the classic rural American towns that I grew up learning about. The towns where we respect our elders, help each other, and work hard every single day. These towns where friends and family look out for each other. I'm running for a commission seat because we're at a crucial junction point here in Townsend. We must put the hard work in now to review our rules and update our ordinances to ensure that outside forces don't push this town to a place it doesn't want to be. we want a quiet, family-oriented community, and that's what I'm running for. I wasn't sure what tonight's format looked like, to be honest, and so I was going to ask you guys for some questions, now, but that's not going to happen. Mayor's going to ask me those later, but look, I'm not someone who shies away from uncomfortable conversations. You want to ask me something, we're going to talk about it, all right? And as we, both Dave and I, worked on the Community Planning Advisory Committee, setting up and getting it set up and rolling, and we've had our fair share of debates, right, as any effective committee does.
Time.
Thank you.
And that's all he has to say about that.
You can go on about the CPAC, right?
Well, I'll answer the question. You ready? My name's Dave Hoke, 30-year resident. I married into the Lawson family, who even has a longer history here in Townsend. I feel I'm running because I feel it deep in my soul. I'm only a resident here. I've lived on Mountain Avenue for over 30 years. This is my home. I raised my kid here. I'm raising my grandkids here. I have nothing at stake but my heart to give to this town. I retired 2 years ago. I started coming to these meetings wanting to give back to the very town that enriched the quality of my life tremendously. Sometimes the only way to pay it forward is with your blood, sweat, and tears. I'm just a ball cap tennis shoe guy. I'm hardworking. I give back to this community. Some of you know the classic truck event that we put on. We gave over $10,000 back into this community just a month or so ago. I'll continue to do that. I'll continue to chair the Community Plan Advisory Committee and be involved. But I think running for city commissioner, at least for me, is just a passion, heartfelt. I'm connected. This is my hometown and always will be. That's why I'm running, to help keep it that way. I still have time left.
Minute 35.
I'm good.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Candidates don't have to use the entire time. Okay.
My name is Becky Hedrick. I live with my parents at the traffic light towards Valley Road, where the Burnbrick House with the cows around it. My family's been here forever. I grew up here. I just try to, originally got on the board in 2012, I believe. And I'm just trying to do what the citizens want and be their voice.
Thanks, Becky. Pat?
Okay. My name's Pat Jenkins. I live on Old Highway 73, 4 houses upstream from the Swinging Bridge. A lot of you guys walk by there every day. It's a very popular place to ride your bikes and walk, and people stop and talk. This is my background. I'm a retired automotive engineer. We've owned our property here for 30 years. We've lived here full-time for 20 years. I've been Townsend mayor before for 4 years. I'm running for this position in order to provide the Townsend citizens with additional strong voice on the commission. A voice that will resist business development that is not compatible with Townsend's unique character and personality. When elected, I will work to preserve our shared heritage, a heritage that uniquely defines Townsend as the peaceful side of the Smokies. I plan on pushing relentlessly to update the city's ordinances, which we show are lacking now, to enhance preservation, protect green space, oppose unnecessary and unwanted business development, and to enhance the feeling of community for the citizens now and in the future. I'm different from the other candidates. I have no business affiliation, no festival affiliation, have extensive experience with the city of Townsend's administration. I attend nearly all the meetings and workshops, and most of all, I have a burning desire to preserve the peaceful side of the Smokies for the citizens.
Pat. Ted?
Well, I'm Ted Godfrey, and I've been here in Townsend since my brothers and I were the only people that tubed the river. Only 3 tubes total on the river. But anyway, I grew up here, spent 38 years in Texas, made a career down there, and I'm back, and I've never strayed from the fact I want to retire up here, the best place in the world. And change is coming, it's inevitable, so we just need to communicate these common sense and how we want to develop it.
Okay.
All right.
All right, thanks, Ted. All right, I think we're doing pretty good on time. So we're going to stick with, I think, probably 2 minutes after this for the questions. I've got a couple to kick us off, but then after I've asked a couple of questions, then I'd really like people to get ready to come to the microphone and feel free to ask the questions to the candidates, correct? I've heard it said, candidates, that the number of full-time residents in Townsend is decreasing. I'd be interested to know your perspective on this. Is this a problem? And if it's a problem, what would you propose to do to address it? And we'll start with David Hope.
You know, the lifeblood, I think, of any community is right up here at the school, is engaging the families to stay here. As far as whether it's decreasing or increasing, the population of the people actually live here, I think it is decreasing. I know a lot of the people that used to live here, worked here. I would be for anything that promoted people that live here to work here. I mean, there's a lot of people that live in this town that make a living, that can make a living here. But I think it's centered around our families and reaching out to them, making sure our school is successful, making sure we have parks, making sure we have a vibrant population. And I think once we establish that, people will want to come and live here. And I think our population will stay alive.
Thanks, Dave. Becky?
A lot of the population was older and their children, and some of them move away and move back. People come in to retire, and it's a mix. We have a lot of people coming from other states because this is the best place to be. But the climate's a little different now because some people have more than one house. But we want residents to come in here and they get their home and their retirement, or to come in and raise their children.
Thanks, Becky. Let's go to Pat.
If you look at the voter statistics, the number of registered voters in Townsend has steadily increased since 2010. So it's hard for me to believe that the population's actually going down. Now, on that other side is we all know that the population growth is mostly in mature people. A lot of retirees here, they live here because it's the peaceful side of the Smokies, not because it's Pigeon Forge. It would be nice to have more kids in town. I agree 100%. I see 4 or 5 kids every 3 or 4 days, and that's it. It would be nice to have more families here. But as far as the population going down, the statistics don't support that.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Ted?
Coming back up what the other 3 people have said, there's no one, people are moving here. Well, it started, I think, to really increase with the COVID, and people come in with different ideas from different parts of the country. I mean, they're doing a pretty good job of meshing together.
Okay. Houston?
So is your question asking if we felt like we were decreasing residents, or were you stating that, folks around here have given you feedback that they feel like their community is decreasing in size?
I've heard that the proportion of full-time residents in Townsend is decreasing.
Right. As I've been talking to people and preparing for this night and for this election, this idea of short-term rentals keeps coming up, right? The idea that our community's maybe not being decimated, but it's being confused by having too many homes that are rented out one night here, that are not one night there, that are not in a hotel or a lodging setting. And a community like ours we can't let that go unregulated, And so I think that if we're looking at building a robust community with a community base that that has shared values, that we all go to the same grocery store, we all go to the same elementary school, we're all doing the same thing because we live and work around here. It requires us to put some things in place that allows housing to be abundant at a price that allows the workforce to live here. We may not have a ton of power as Townsend city government to build housing, to do things that increase the workforce here or increase houses that are available for the workforce, but we have to be cognizant of doing what we can to ensure that our housing supply is meeting the price point that allows for a robust community that is young, middle-aged, and retiring.
Thank you. All right, next question. We'll start this one with Becky Hedrick. The city of Townsend derives most of its budget from the sales tax. So we don't have a property tax in Townsend. How are we going to provide more services to our residents? And if the population is truly increasing, that would be a more demand for services. What would be your thoughts about how we can do that, given the fact that the budget is based on sales tax?
There's been talk for years about implementing a property tax, but it's never gone through. Offering additional services to our citizens is a gateway to allowing property taxes. And our community, there's limited properties, so to have any kind of funding from that property tax, your property tax has to be fairly high. And as we all know, a lot of our residents here are retirees or have lived here forever, and no one needs an additional tax. And it may be low to begin with, but it always increases and increases, and it'll never go back down. So I'd be very hesitant about offering additional services because that could lead into property taxes.
Okay, thank you. Pat?
First of all, I've been to all the budget meetings, and I've never seen a budget where we had a deficit. We've always had money to cover the services that the city wanted to have. I keep hearing people say we need more money because we need more services. I don't know what those services are. We have a very good volunteer fire department. We have more than enough police, except when we get overloaded by festivals. I just don't understand why there's so much talk about increased services.
Okay, thank you. Ted?
I'm inclined to agree with what Pat just said. I mean, what do we offer them? Do we have in place seems to work right now?
Okay, thanks, Ted. Houston?
I'm going to do that thing I did last time, just ask you to make sure I clarify the question. You're asking us if we were to expand services, are you asking what type of services we might expand to, or just how we fund them?
Mostly about the funding. We have a funding model that is based primarily on sales tax.
One of the major things that scared me in the last year was watching two forest fires creep over Rich Mountain. I didn't like that at all. My house sits on Old Tuckaleechee. We can see part of Rich Mountain as we go. And so to disagree maybe with a couple of people up here, that our fire department's been great for the last 30 years, but we're fighting a new and different type of thing that we have to be cognizant of. So how do we raise our city budget? It's two ways. we're going in this town to walk towards the future. We're going to offer a path to having a few more businesses in town as this town goes throughout the years. That is how you raise sales tax. Very simple. But there's a nuance in that we have to acknowledge. We have existing buildings, commercially zoned buildings in this town that need to be revitalized. We don't need to be new development. We don't need to be adding new buildings here. We need to be incentivizing and finding ways to ensure that existing commercial properties are opened back up and are offering a lifeline for this community to continue to increase our sales tax revenues. Second way, we have to go to Blount County and claw back some of our hotel tax. We have not addressed this as a thing that we can do, that we can lobby with. Blount County, as a general, takes 5% off of our hotels tax and doesn't give us anything. It goes straight to a different organization to fund us. We gotta go to them and we have to understand that we have to implement a plan in that we claw back revenue from the only revenue generating governing body above us. We don't have a way to collect taxes here. We don't need it, we don't want it. Blount County does. They send us taxes back, the state sends us taxes back. We have to go to them and find ways and avenues to change their laws to ensure that we can get more funds.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Can you repeat the question?
The Townsend city budget is primarily based on sales tax. If we want or need to provide additional services, what are your thoughts about how we can do that?
Well, my thoughts about that center around this gateway process, this gateway community that we have. We are providing a gateway opportunity to Cades Cove, the Smoky Mountains, and the National Park. I think to offer more services, I mean, right now we have a police force, we have full maintenance crew, we have parks, recreation opportunities that the city manages and city owns. To increase that, obviously, or the effect on it, I think they do a great job, by the way, in everything we do. I would love to be able to add more police force. I would love to see that, yes, and it is sales tax driven. I think we need to create opportunities with these businesses up and down this corridor so more people stop and more people leave their tourist dollars here in town. I would love to see that process where by the time, we might joke about it, but when these people coming to the town or tourists or going to Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge, I would love for them to leave all the money in their pockets here in Townsend, Tennessee, so we can gain the sales tax from that. I think we can still add to, we're gonna need some work at our city park. There's a lot of things that we can expand resources for our city residents that way. But I'll tell you what, having a full-time police force, that's at the top of my list. I love having that in Townsend. And it wasn't that long ago that we didn't have that.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got one more question, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. And I've got a few more. We don't have any questions from the audience, but I expect we will. Last question. This is an opportunity for candidates to frame the question themselves. So can you tell us one challenge that you see that's facing Townsend in the future and what solution you would provide to that challenge? And we'll start with Pat.
I think the biggest challenge is, it seems like every time we have somebody want to do something here in town, we change our ordinances so they can do it, or we don't have a well-defined ordinance for them to do it. I think it's really important that we aggressively attack our ordinances in a thoughtful way so we don't have to change them every time somebody wants to call a cabin development a hotel. It just doesn't make sense to me. The second thing that I think is the planning commission needs to be more about planning and less about reacting. The planning commission is supposed to control what the community plan group does because they're a subset. I don't see that actually happening. I see the community plan group running independent of the planning commission, but yet they're supposed to be a subset of them. So those are the two important things that I see.
Thanks, Pat. Ted?
I don't know if there's one single thing that jumps out at me right now, but how to get the biggest bang for our buck, I guess.
Okay. Houston?
Pat, I gotta agree with you about, we gotta dream bigger about what people can do in this town. I mean, what folks coming from the outside could come up with, and we gotta put the work in to put these ordinances in place that we don't budge on when they come here with these wild ideas. Problem I see in the future. It's partially already here, but I think it's gonna get bigger, and it's large events. So what are large events to us here in town? You know, are they the tractor festivals that happen down here, or the little things we have going on? No, those require event permits, but they're not huge events. You know, we're talking about events that pull in 3, 5, 10,000 people in this town, right? And since I've lived here, we've seen those number of events grow from about 3 a year to probably 6 or 7. 6 or 7 days out of the year with these large events, I'm okay with that, 6 or 7. But how do we actually do that? How do we actually codify a way to ensure that we're not approving permits where from the months of March until October, we have a large event every single weekend? How are we doing that? And I don't know how this holds up legally, but let's create an events calendar, an event season. Let's create a way where we know that from March until, call it May, so 12 weeks out of the year, we are allowing large events. Simple. I mean, it gives us the opportunity to forecast and to plan exactly when we may have large events here in town, for us to plan our lives around it, because what I've continued to hear from people is that they're caught off guard by these large events. They don't want to continue to have to divert their lives on a Saturday after they've been working all week. So let's go ahead and say that we update our events ordinances.
Okay, thanks. Dave?
The biggest challenge and the solution. So that's good, because that's what we're here for. I think the biggest challenge right now in Townsend's life, history here, is right now. I mean, times are changing, economy's changing, what Townsend looks like is changing, even since I've been here. I think the future is our biggest challenge, is how do we address that? How do we approach it? How do we itemize it? How do we become good caretakers over this town? It does include a lot of the things that these people are saying up here, the events and all such. But I think that's the biggest challenge, is what's ahead of us. And I think it takes serious people to solve serious problems. The solution is exactly what's happening right now. In the past 2 years that I've been coming to these meetings, and a little prior to that, there wasn't no one that attended 2 or 3 years ago. Now the rooms are filling up. I think the solution is the people of this town. I think the answers are out there. And I've heard some great, you have too, we've heard some great ideas from the people, even chairing the committee, the CPAC committee. You get a lot of public input, whether you ask for it or not. Townsenites are just like that. And I think the answers are out in our community. And that's where the solutions lie.
Thank you. Becky?
Kind of going on from what Pat said. What do you want your future to be? A lot of our regulations need to be revisited, but instead of just 5 people that are on planning committee or city commission, we need to have it to where the citizens can get up and speak and not just 5 people make the decisions. We need to have everyone's input of how we want the city to move forward. And with special events, I think a lot of people would say one large special event is too many large special events. We need to be able to come together and have some kind of compromise to where it's beneficial for the business, but yet also livable for the citizens.
Good, thank you very much. All right, now's the time, I think, folks in the audience, what I'd like for you to do, the next question will go to Mr. Godfrey, to Ted, and if you would come to the microphone and ask your question. Hansel?
I wanted to ask about partnerships, and what are some of the most important partnerships that you see that we have potential as well as current partnerships for the town of Townsend that are going to make this place become a better point for future residents and a great place for those who will continue to live here? We all know there are some obvious answers there that we're working with currently. I'm probably more interested in who you think might be a potential partner as we start to think towards the future. Any kind of comment on that, I would enjoy hearing about. Thank you.
Thanks, Haskell, and that question will go first to Ted. Thank God. Question was partnerships.
Partnerships. How about define partnerships? Is it strictly as a business aspect, or?
I was thinking about who we are currently working with or who we might wish to work with in the future that would make Townsend stay the same great place it is and become even greater in the future.
Well, obviously, we have to work with Blount County. And on that, I'm not sure anybody just jumps out to mind.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Houston.
Thank you, Mr. Haskell. Furiously writing over here. I have a few different answers for you. And I'm going to start with actually the local churches here who continue to provide the necessary services for our folks that are in need in our community in a way that Blount County, North Townsend can really do based on the way the government's set up. Those local churches and those food banks and those dry out spaces are really critical to this corner of Southeast Appalachia. So I thank them for that work. I'm actually going to say the Tuckaleechee Garden Club. I think their presence here has kind of beautified a corner of Townsend and continued to help us be a really attractive place to drive through. I like beauty when I drive. I like to see it during the day. I appreciate their work, and I hope that we can expand their work with them in the elementary school moving forward. I want to call out Kim from ETDD with the Planning Commission. I think it's important for us to continue to have a partnership with them. They're a value consultant that's here to help our government get better, to be more efficient, to be more thorough. So we need to keep a positive relationship with them. And then finally, Blount County Emergency Services. Considering we are a gateway to the national park, we need to have open and excellent communication with emergency services, as we tend to be the pull-out point for any sort of a tragedy that might happen in the park, whether it's life flight or everything that comes through town. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Houston. Dave?
Well, just learning a lot of this, being on the committee, it's amazing how you can be a resident here for so long, and then you finally get involved in city stuff, and you start seeing our community is made up of all these groups, all these little you have the Heritage Center, you have Tremont here, you have the churches, you have all these different groups, the garden clubs and everything that are around here. That's kind of the lifeblood of this community. That's what makes up Townsend, is all these people collectively together. And I think what it is like I'll reiterate it again, is what we're seeing. More and more of these people are attending these meetings. And the partnerships that we're talking about in the groups, I think they're just kind of coming, we're inviting them to be a part of our solution process. So we're learning more and more we're meeting more and more of these. Now, Houston mentioned working with the Kim at ETDD, which is East Tennessee Development District. They always have been a big partner. There are planning guidelines. So from an administrative part, they keep us out of the gutter and help us advance. They do a really, really good job at that. But I'm a heart guy. I'm a lifeblood guy. And I think these partnerships are, and these groups are all here in this cove, in this Takaluchi Cove area.
Thanks, Dave. Becky?
The partnerships with all the businesses, all the churches, the schools, everything that's in the community. The Parks and Rec has TWRA for the river and the bike trail and every aspect of it, and trying to get the more children involved in activities and getting them, because there's not much for kids around here for parks and everything else, but to try to get them more involved and into everything. But it's going to be a collaboration of all the everything, even Blood Partnership, because they're a part of this community and we're going to have them be a good partner too.
Thanks, Becky. Pat?
I'm going to say a couple of specifics that I think. The Little River is one of our biggest assets. TWRA is responsible for river health. I don't believe that TWRA has helped us like they could, and that's one partnership I think needs to be improved. Also for the river, the Little River Watershed Association protects the interest in the river. I was their treasurer for several years. I know what they can do, I know what they don't do. I think we can get more out of them if we make a more active partnership. Let's see, the other thing on the river is Maryville College is beginning to audit the water quality. I think getting Maryville College to report to us more about their results, more about their tests, might help us partnership with them more. We might be able to get citizens to do some of the testing ourselves, not just rely on 3 students coming up here once a month. I think TDOT is an important partnership, and I think they could help us 2 places. One is the stoplight. That intersection is begging for redesign and improvement. We wouldn't have near as much problem with traffic if it were better. If you look at the statistics, there used to be, and I don't bring them with me, but there used to be 10,000 cars go in towards Cades Cove. Most of them that didn't go to Cades Cove turned and went Wares Valley towards Pigeon Forge. Recently, they've been measuring, and there are now more cars that come to Townsend than go to Pigeon Forge. So that intersection.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question from the audience.
I'm going first, be easy on me.
Actually, what's your name?
Russ Blady, I've been in Townsend for 3 years. I work here in Townsend. My question is kind of back to the mayor's question. The perception, I guess he says that there's a perception that there's less residents of Townsend, and I don't know whether that's true or not. I've only been here 3 years, but I was kind of thinking that when he asked that question, the same thing that Houston brought up, that the reason my perception is that there's less residents here. Since I live and work here, and I'm out of my house all the time. I go to the local restaurants. I talk to a lot of people that are trying to move here. A lot of them are retirement age people like me. about my age, and they can't afford to move here. And part of the reason they can't afford here is because of how many Airbnbs are here. Everything's getting turned into an Airbnb. So my question is, how hard is it to stop that? Does anybody know, can we change the laws? Can we slow down the Airbnbs? I'm fortunate I live up on Chestnut Hill where there aren't any Airbnbs, but I would hate to live in some of these neighborhoods where the person next door to me is a new person every weekend and because it's an Airbnb. So can we change this? That's the question. Does anyone know how hard is it to change it? Can we slow it down so that people can, because it's twofold. It's one, the Airbnbs are not residents, and two, the Airbnbs are driving up the prices of houses, which make it even harder for people to buy houses and become residents. So my basic question is, can we slow it down? Is there an easy way to do this? And if so, why haven't we?
Okay, thanks, Russ. I think this one goes to Houston first.
Thanks, Russ. I can't answer the last question about why haven't we yet. I hope to be able to take some steps on this in a few months. There's a short answer about whether we can ban them, and the answer is no. The state level here in Tennessee, the state legislature has decided that they are legal across the state, and any locality that tries to ban them is essentially sued. But we have a couple ways to regulate them. So it essentially comes down to registration and enforcement, and the different rules we want to put on them as strict or as loose as we want to with how we can enforce it. You know, our codes enforcers here aren't exactly queued up right now to handle, you know, checking in on short-term rentals regularly. But at the same time, we could do a lot of different things. One of them, a fee to sign up to register your house, you know, as a short-term rental. That's one. What that fee is, I'm not sure. A lot of times just the process of registration is what is a barrier enough for people. Number two, a strict rule that we actually enforce if they are not registered, and we do not allow them to operate again if they are not registered. Number three, we capture the sales tax from those short-term rentals to make sure that that sales tax and the hotel tax is staying in one county. And number four, which I think is the most difficult to adjudicate and the one that I'd like to see the most, is the local ownership clause. I would love to see that the community members that do go through the hurdles to have a short-term rental, that money from the short-term rental is staying in this community and being reinvested in this community. I don't know exactly how to do that, but I'll reference again Kim with ETDD and that being his field to help us into advising.
Time? Okay, Dave?
I think that's what we're working on right now. Home values across the eastern seaboard are doubling and tripling. It's not just Townsend, it's all over East Tennessee. We see that no matter where you go. Go to Nashville. I mean, property values have gone crazy. I think we're getting some of that. I think we're seeing the rise in property values because we have a lot of people that are migrating to this part of the country and bringing their money with them. It is raising, I can attest to the fact that it's raising property values. I don't know if the Airbnb, I first would love to do this as a city commissioner, is I would love to take an inventory of those just to see, instead of start implementing things right away. Is there a lot of them? We don't even know. I would agree that there would be some point to register an Airbnb. I'm all about the economics part of it too. Is it income producing for at least those in the city of Townsend? Is it income producing for Townsend? Are they going to pay their sales tax here? Part of what we lose out on with the festivals or the food trucks and all this or Airbnbs is that person owns, they might live in Michigan and own the house next door to me and it's an Airbnb and those taxes are paid back there. That's what we have to wrangle that back in. So what belongs to Townsend stays in Townsend. That sounds kind of vague-y, I apologize for that, but what happens here stays here. If the tax belongs to us, and the tax stays in Townsend. So I'm all for an inventory, just to see what's out there, and then start moving on regulations.
Okay, thanks, Dave. Becky?
I didn't realize there were so many Airbnbs until a couple of years ago. They mentioned, oh, everybody's staying at Airbnb, and I was like, well, where are they? And then once the little scooters came into town, I realized where a lot of those are. So, and I'm sure a lot of you do too. It's just that it's a money-making machine, Airbnbs. I don't think, as I said, I don't think we can regulate them, but it's something that we need to try to work with them, but it's their property, and if that's what they choose to do, that's what they choose to do, but to try to limit it, I don't think we can, but it would be nice to be able to have people that truly want to come here for retirement and live, to be able to come here and live, but also if you're like somewhere that you don't have a different neighbor every weekend, every week, that come here for vacation, when you're trying to live here, that you can enjoy the peace for why you moved here, instead of having everyone here on vacation, enjoying themselves.
Thanks, Becky. Pat?
Other cities work on this problem by rules. For instance, Nashville limits the number and size of vehicles that can be parked at an Airbnb. There are noise requirements that are strictly enforced. There are safety requirements that are strictly enforced. And when I say safety requirements, I mean the state of Tennessee inspects those places like they're a hotel. But they do it because Nashville requires them to. I think there are other things like that. Those come to mind. But I think we can actually regulate them by rules and kind of work around this state decree that Airbnbs are legal. I think also lobbying at the state level might have some impact if we join with other municipalities in doing that. But Nashville's been very successful in limiting the growth of Airbnbs.
Thanks, Pat. Ted?
What was the question?
Basically, can we limit Airbnbs is the question? Can we slow it down?
Most of the Airbnbs, I believe, are outside the city limits. That's enforce the regulations we have, and I mean, they need to turn their noise down at 10 o'clock too, just like everybody else. I make them aware of the rules, they come in before they rent. It's gonna be Airbnbs no matter what.
Okay. Thanks, Ted. All right, next question. Another question from the audience.
Question.
Jill?
There's a 2-minute time limit.
10 minutes, well, I'll try to. Thank you all, first off, for what you're doing and serving the community. I think it's amazing, and I appreciate that. But I'm curious, I've spent many years in this community as a resident and fighting the drug problem. And so I would be curious to know how familiar you all are with the drug problem in the community, and what your solution would be to the hundreds of kids to ensure that they don't become a casualty of this problem.
Could you identify yourself and your position, please?
My name is Jill Hepperly, and I'm the Executive Director of TCGA, recent position.
Thanks, Jill. I think your question will go first to Dave Hope.
I'm glad I get that question, because I've been directly affected by it, and we all have in one form or fashion. Yeah, it's here, and we know it's here. We've dealt with it on Mountain Avenue. You deal with it back in the valley. Not only that, but also, liquid substances also has been a problem here. We can't sweep it under the rug when you have a school here and when you have kids here and when you have churches here. I think all we can do is enforcement. I mean, one of the steps is definitely enforcement. That's why I'm very pro police force here. And I'm glad that we have a large police force. In the case that directly affected us, the city police were involved. And it was a big concern for our little part of Townsend over here. And I can imagine having some of these quote-unquote drug houses that do exist in this cove. Though as expansive as it is, should be addressed accordingly. I think that is addressed right from the city police. I think it starts at that level. Education also, right here in these schools, whether it's in the churches or our community organizations around here. Having been here a long time, a lot of us know it exists. And I think that's a high priority. If you want to bring children in a community and lower the average age so people can live here and work here, you have to address that. That goes without saying. Great question. Thank you.
Thanks. Becky?
As Dave said, it's here, it's all around us. It's in the kids' homes. They're family members. You have to get them involved in school activities, church activities, have extracurricular activities to get them out among their peers and responsible adults, keep them active to where they don't have time to do things, and keep them out of trouble as much as possible.
Pat?
Ask the question again.
How familiar are you with the drug trafficking in this community, and what would be your solution to help prevent all the hundreds of children that do live here from becoming a casualty of that?
Okay. A little bit of history. When I was mayor back in 2008 through 2012, the police department, for lack of a better word, busted drug houses quite a bit. I was surprised at how much we busted them back then, but yet here it is 2024, and I can't say it's any better. I think it's worse. I agree with Becky, getting kids involved in activities like the parks and recreation groups trying to do. The schools try. Maybe more adults need to be involved at the school level, maybe. That might help. I know the churches, when I go to the churches around here, there's not a lot of kids in those churches. The youth groups are pretty small. You have to go to the Boys Ranch in Weirs Valley before you see a large number of kids in a church service. So the police force, yes, they're the enforcement guys. Right now, they're not the education guys. Maybe they could help be more of the education people and help our kids. There's no doubt we all see it, and none of us like it.
Thanks, Pat. Ted?
Becky said earlier, I think it comes back into parenting. There's not enough information, obviously, filtering down to the children. Probably know mom and daddy are doing it too, so. You're gonna need it no matter what.
Thanks, Ted. Houston?
At this level of government, we have limited funds to address this, right? Blount County is probably in a better place as a local governing body to address it comprehensively. So that means it falls on us to build partnerships. I think everybody else up here has basically identified all but one partnership. So schools, education, of course, churches, absolutely. Obviously, I think some of those churches fall outside of the city limits that are doing the most, you know? But that doesn't mean that the ones inside the city limits can't continue to help us. You know, and enforcement via the police is hopefully the last step, you know, and that we're not going after folks who have not been a nuisance yet with full enforcement, and that we're trying to help them. But that is not necessarily something that we control either, you know. So I do think education from a city level, and so, you know, building into our Parks and Rec platform, our Parks and Rec initiatives, you know, education from that point is a way to do it. But I think there's also a way to incentivize our businesses inside of the city limits to hire folks who have been through dry out programs, to give them a second chance, and to give folks who have been incarcerated for this a second chance. We have a workforce shortage in Townsend pretty regularly, maybe not when school's out, but definitely on those times when we're busy and the high schoolers and the college kids are still in. And so I would love to find a way for this community, whether it's from a governmental incentive level or just as a community in general, to support folks who have been in drug offenses before getting back on their feet via workforce programs.
I do want to clarify with the children in the community, we are currently right now feeding over 125 every week, once a week, and they live, like, they're right here in this community. So, and a lot of them are coming from these families. So, thank you all.
Thanks, Jill.
Ricky Martin. I'm going to ask you a question that was asked when I was sitting in your place. It's very nerve-wracking sometimes. What is your best quality, and what is an area that you feel like you need to work on within yourself?
Yes, Becky, you're next up.
My best quality is maybe a worst quality too. I care and overthink too much. And what was the second part?
What is your best quality, and what is something you need to work on?
As someone said, giving myself grace.
Okay, thanks, Becky. Matt?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm an engineer. That means I'm real picky. I know how to read specs, I know how to enforce specs. That's one of my strong points, and you guys have seen that in meetings. I'm the guy that stands up and says, Section 8-311 says. That's my personality. That's my training. What could I do better? Well, maybe not standing up in front of everybody and saying Section 8-311, maybe finding a better way to implement that. And if I'm a city commissioner, I think I could work more subtly with that sort of thing. But that's my strong point, and that's my weak.
Okay. Thanks, Pat. Ted?
I think my strong point is listening to the community. I like to wander around to the businesses and ask them what's going on, what do they think about this, or what's on your mind today, and listen to them. Though accordingly, not what I think, what they want.
Thank you. Houston?
Oh wait, he didn't say what he wanted to work on.
I need to work on patience.
Thank you.
I think my best quality is that I will rarely come into a situation unprepared. So I'm gonna go around, find the input, study it, get the information. I really don't like to be unprepared, and a lot of that comes from it doesn't matter where it comes from, just somewhere inside me. But because of that, I can be direct and a bulldog at times. I can strive to get things done too fast, or question too many people.
Why are you
Get
looking at
things
me?
done, because you're the one that tells me I gotta stop asking so many questions.
I don't say that about you. Stop asking me questions.
That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Houston. Dave?
You know, my best quality, at my age, I think is like I raised my son. Don't ever tell a lie. Be honest with everybody, even if it's bad news. And I think that's gonna be a great quality to have as a city commissioner. I think my worst quality comes out of my construction background, where you get on a job site and you're ready to build the building, and the material's sitting over there, and it's charged, full steam ahead. And I'm very much that guy. And I think that's a quality that now that I'm at the age I'm at, I'm trying to slow that process down and be more methodical about it. But I think I have a tendency to jump in and let's go to work. And sometimes I think that could be my worst quality.
All right. Another question from the audience? Do we have one?
Hi, good evening. My name is Erin. I have sort of lived here in Townsend since 2019. We bought a house. We were back and forth. We were the part-timers that have been referenced. We moved here permanently a little over a year ago. My question for each of you is, since 2019, I have watched this town react. We're reacting to Airbnbs. We're reacting to ordinances that have been in place for quite some time but are just now seeing that it's letting things in that we don't want. And we're reacting to growth that we can't control right now. What can you, or what are you thinking about doing, if anything, to be proactive instead of reactive for the future of this town?
And first responder is Pat.
What part of town do you live in, just out of curiosity?
The end of Webb Road,
Okay.
up Blakely Lane.
Okay,
There.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe one way to help get the kind of things we want in town is to have very good ordinances, very specific, well thought out, not wait until somebody comes and goes, oh yeah, it's not a campground, it's a hotel. That stuff's just bull. We need to have the rules carefully designed so people can't do that. And when they come in and want to do something that we don't allow, we ought to be able to say, no, thank you. There's room over there on Weirs Valley Road for that kind of development. So my goal would be to work hard on getting the ordinances straightened out and enforced. That answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Pat. Ted.
I'm encouraged by what I've heard tonight. It's not just the new people that have moved to town in the last few years, since 2019 or 17. We need to get some of the people who've lived here for many years get a lot more involved on serving on committees and make suggestions and all. I agree with what's been said about update the ordinances and enforce what we have.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Houston?
So I think your question is basically, how do we get ahead of what's coming, right? And so I said earlier that we have to dream. We have to dream bigger than the folks who are coming in here to develop the land that's undeveloped, or to put something in here that doesn't align with where we want to go. We have some problems with that though, right? Like, I don't think we all in this room could agree on where we all want to go right now, you know? I would do a lot of hard work. I will commend the mayor for putting together this community planning advisory committee. It is the hard work that will lead us to a master plan, a vision of what we need to be as a community over the next 10 to 15 years. And it'll lead to updated ordinances that get us to right now, right? So that just gets us to now. The vision may set us up for, comprehensive understanding of where we want to go, but the actual process of updating the land use and transportation plan and getting the ordinances updated that support that vision, those will at least get us to now, right? Because we're going to go through Tennessee code, we're going to go through all the different actual documents to get them updated to 2024, 2025, right? And so we've talked about short-term rentals. I brought up the idea of an event season. I think those are two examples of things that even though short-term rentals are here, there are hundreds of communities in the U.S. that have not addressed this at all. It's not like we're the last one that hasn't done it. And to Pat's point, some places are doing really well at it. I think we need to borrow. I think we need to look elsewhere to find the right things. But in the end, it's about having a commission that dreams bigger than the people coming in here. We need to be better at dreaming.
Thanks, Houston. Dave?
Getting ahead is exactly, like Houston referenced, is exactly what the Community Plan Advisory Committee was assembled for, is to help Townsend put a supercharged turbo engine under the hood and get us out front faster than people are gaining on us. I think what's going to come out of that is super defined ordinances, a big plan and vision for Townsend that has the community input that has always been needed. I think this will be the land use and transportation document that takes Townsend into the future. It'll keep us ahead. We're at this point where we're not a farming community anymore. We're an advanced gateway community, town, municipality, and we have to take ourselves that seriously. And we have to be on that level. And if we don't have the expertise, we have to find the expertise. That's what gets us ahead.
Thanks, Dave. Becky?
As you mentioned, we've been reacting to things once they've popped up. Several years ago, we updated the charter, but I don't think anybody that's on the new members of the commission, we have not started going through that charter again to see what things needed to be changed and updated since then. We mentioned about our ordinances with noise, about record players. If you play your record player too loud, you need to turn it down. It's like, if we haven't updated our ordinances since you used record players, how many other things need to be updated? And it's a constant thing. Once you update it, you need to start back over again because things are always evolving and changing. And I know some of the things that we've looked at, we need to be Blount County or better because we're Townsend. We're beautiful. We want to stay beautiful. We want to have higher standards than what Blount County has. So we just need to go through all of our ordinances and regulations and update those and then start back again and see what things have changed and update as needed with things that come up.
Okay, we are 10 minutes after the hour, but we will stay for a while as long as our citizens continue to have questions.
Level, thank you for being up there. I've heard everybody mention the vision of Townsend. I'm curious what your own personal vision for Townsend is in 5-10 years. What do you, in your mind, look and see when you think of Townsend in 5-10 years?
Good question.
Okay, and I think that one goes to Ted. I think Ted is returned to George.
We're already more crowded than what I'd like to see. I'd like to turn the clock back about 20 years. But this new generation is in this to make money, and they see ways to make money that we haven't even dreamed of yet. So trying to stay ahead of them will be a chore.
Okay, thanks, Ted. Houston.
I'm probably, well, not probably, I am the only one up here that has little kids right now, you know? Yeah. Well, and actually to that point, Pat, you know, I see this town in 5 to 10 years, I hope I see this town in 5 to 10 years remaining free of anything that blocks our view of what the natural world is that surrounds us. I see this town as being family-oriented, a community that is respectful of our natural neighbors, you know, the national park next door, the parkway on the other side. We're basically surrounded by it, right? One of my favorite, actually my favorite physical thing about Townsend is when we're coming back from Maribel, you're driving through the curves and you pop out and you just have to ignore the porta potty place right there, but you look over it and I don't think Rich Mountain gets enough credit for how big and demanding and cool it is. That place is awesome. That mountain is awesome. So often we watch the storms come up on the radar, right? And they come up south of us, they're hitting Cades Cove, and bam, they run into Rich Mountain, they don't even touch us, right? I think that's cool. Look, my vision of Townsend is to continue to build this community back to being one that young families can live in, that when grandkids visit, that they have something to do. Maybe they live here too, Pat, I don't know. I think someone else mentioned that earlier, that there's not a ton for kids to do right at this moment, and I'd love to see more of that. But I'm not talking about more of that with go-karts or bumper cars or something like that. No, more of that is working with Tremont as they expand, working with our Riverwalk to make it more inclusive for young kids that are going through it, right? It's working with our elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave?
That's a great question, because that's the reason I'm running for city commission, is the vision, my vision will be my son. I want it to be my son's vision. I want it to be my I have 3 grandkids, and they come up here quite a bit. They play out in Mellow Mountain Avenue like my son did, and like my wife did. I think the goal for any community, especially when it's generational, is for my generation to see the next generation have the same opportunities and the same experience, right? I was a kid that you went home when the streetlights came on, right? I was one of those kids. My son grew up having that same experience here in Townsend. When the lights came on, you had to ride your bike home. I want my grandkids to come up here and feel that Townsend is as much as their home, even though they don't live in the city of Townsend, to come up here and feel it that same way. I think that's an ultimate vision for now, me being a papa, is to see the generations that come behind me and whoever keeps coming behind me to come to Townsend and have that. What an experience to have that part of what we call the American dream, where you can play out in the middle of the road, right? And throw the football and whatever it is, play catch. Not a lot of communities have that anymore, and they're losing that because of migration and people moving to the big cities and stuff. I think my vision would be that, is to protect that, because I think that's what quality of life is, and I think that's what we're all here for, is these meetings become packed because it's not the economy or anything. We're trying to protect our quality of life. Great question. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Becky?
A dream vision would be to have it be like what it was when I was growing up, a 2-lane with not much going on. And when you go to Maribel, people say, oh, you're from Townsend. That's not that way anymore. People want to come here now. So my vision is try to make it, growth is coming, but if you can make it, as Houston mentioned, in the existing buildings to where new buildings don't have to go up and use new properties, because those properties could be used for housing or other things. But if there's growth, have it tasteful and have it to where it's neighbor friendly, to where you're not just building something and it's an eyesore and you're looking out the window, and just make everyone be a community.
Thanks, Becky. Matt?
Okay. This is a little different. My vision is to give the citizens what they want. And I've been asking people what they want out of Townsend. And these are the words: simplicity, personality, non-conforming, generational, conservative, quaint, land conservative, outdoors, history, friendly, quiet, beautiful, and wildlife corridors. Those are things people tell me they want the vision of Townsend to be. I agree with those things. I think they're what we want. The other thing is, this is homework. I've been reading about tourism gentrification. Never even heard that word until a month ago. Two girls that live here in Townsend wrote a paper about it at Mississippi State. It's really interesting because it talks about original owners getting pushed out of places because money comes in, takes over, pushes them further out. I think we have to think of a way to keep gentrification under control in the future.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Another question from the audience. This is your moment. Kelsey.
Hello, I am Commissioner Satterfield and Parks and Rec Chairman for the city. I have like 10 questions, but I'll just ask one. Okay. It's about Parks and Rec, obviously. What are your thoughts on Townsend's current path with Parks and Recreation, and how would you support it, and where do you see it going in the future?
Hey, Kelsey, you said the word path, the Parks and Rec path, as in like the direction that you're going, or the actual physical path we have in town?
Oh. The current path of where it's headed.
Cool, okay.
Houston, you have the next.
I know. I know. I'm gonna run out of time again. Kelsey, number one, I've been super impressed with what you've done with Parks and Rec with basically no budget. I know you haven't gotten a huge budget, and that's awesome. It's been great. We need that here, and I appreciate the work you do. And so much of what you have accomplished thus far is because you're willing to put the time and the work into it. You're willing to beat the sidewalks, to get on the Facebook groups, to send the emails, to do all those things. And I think that path that you're on for that is absolutely critical. Whether it's you in the next cycle, or it's another person that gets on the committee with you to have extra manpower, that the actual manpower to do it is super important. I love the asset list you put together. I basically, we are moving towards having a true Parks and Rec group, but we can't do that without a master plan, right? And so we have to get this master plan in place, because you can't do any of the improvements that you want to do, that this town wants to do, without grant funding. And so, look, we're on a path to getting you a master plan that includes a Parks and Rec plan. That's the first thing we have to do, and then I am wholeheartedly in support of finding grants that continue to invest in the parks and the community recreation centers in this town.
Thanks, Houston. Dave?
So, Kelsey, hi.
Hi.
For those of you that don't know, Kelsey is our boots on the ground. She's developed a lot of the asset list and really kind of led the charge up the hill. We have a lot of that in common. The path that they're on is, I think, the path for Townsend. Having the parks and the recreation opportunities, they're here. The asset list that Houston referenced is places that exist here. From the covered bridge from one side down to the dam on the other side, and the park, and a lot of things that go with that. It's quite an extensive list. That is the heart and soul of Townsend. The path that needs to stay on is the path that it's on now. is it's bringing things to the forefront so we can save the things that need saving and paint up and get, like our new special people's park down there, get that back going again. I think the path that you're on is the right path. I think Parks and Rec is the lifeblood of Townsend. And we see that by just the list you put together and what you guys are doing. I can't say it any better than that. You guys are doing the hard work, and we appreciate that. And that's what we need in Townsend, is more people doing hard work.
Becky?
You've done something that I don't think anybody else has done in the community, other than having Board of Commissioners, or City Commission, and Planning Commission. You've created a Parks and Rec Commission. And you've gotten community members to come out and join that, and improve the city parks, paint, pressure wash, do everything. You've gotten bingo night. Then you've gotten the movie to come about the rivers. And that's something that the community has not had. We had a Christmas dinner. All those things are things that the community has not had before. And you're bringing everybody together. And the park, I'm not really sure how many people knew that we had a city park. I didn't until a couple of years ago when the dumpsters were up there. And I've been here for a while. So you're bringing everybody together and getting us to know about resources that no one knew about that they could use. And
Okay, thanks, Becky. Pat?
Becky, or Kelsey, you don't know me. I hardly ever come to any of your meetings, your activities. I think the path you're on is to build community. I hear you wanting to make plans for how to improve the parks, especially the city park back at the end of Mountain Avenue, which has been there for a long time and ignored. We were some of the only people that used it for taking our dog up there and chasing tennis balls for a long time. I think the path you're on to build partnerships with TDEC and TWRA is really important, because those are resources that will help us on the park and the People's Park down here that we just got. I would support your pathway. And one thing I'd really like to see you do is get a young person on your commission. Like, for instance, the granddaughter was here. You know how valuable it was to have her here and participate. And I think if we had somebody like that that's 13, 14, 15-year-old on your commission, we might learn some things that you and I had never thought of.
Yeah. All right, should we, Ted?
I know it's slow, especially getting a whole new project off the ground, but I commend you for the work you've done. I mean, it's nothing short of outstanding.
Thank you all.
Okay. Mary Kay, would you like to come and ask a question?
I'm Mary Kay, I live here. In regards to Kelsey as a commissioner, she's been awesome. She has a full-time job, more than one, I think. She is married, and she has meetings and comes to all the meetings that I come to, and I come to as many as I possibly can. And I am wondering, if you become commissioner, will you commit to going to all the workshops, all the other committee meetings besides just the commissioners meeting? Because I feel like that is a way to draw all of the committees and the people that represent the citizens on the same page. So can you commit the time to go to all the meetings, the time to communicate with all of the committees, like Kelsey has? She's putting in more hours than any commissioner that I have ever seen do, and her group is flourishing, and I think that is why. So that's my question.
Lead off is Dave.
Okay, good. Great question. It's another reason why I'm running for city commission, because I retired 2 years ago and I have the time. Honestly, personally, I wouldn't do this if I had a full-time job. I think even though you're volunteering your time and attending a lot of these meetings, I think it has to come with the utmost priority for the people that you're serving. I purposely waited to serve the city of Townsend in the way I do and put on benefit shows and do things here till after I retired. I purposely did that because I wanted to give 100% of my time. And the answer to your question for me is yes. I will absolutely attend every meeting. I'll stick my nose some places where it might not even be asked to be present. I'm ready to serve.
Thanks, Dave. Becky?
Yes, I try to make all the meetings. Sometimes I have family or work issues that I'm not able to, but I generally try to attend all of them. You were talking about workshops. I also think that if the planning commission has a workshop, then it would be beneficial if the city commission and BZA attend those workshops as well, because if it's items that go to the city commission to be voted on, why don't we work on the workshop together at one time instead of going from planning commission, city commission? No, we don't like that. Let's go back to planning commission. If we worked on it at the same time all at once, we could get things moving instead of spending back and forth months and months to get things passed.
Thanks, Becky. Pat?
The first thing I'd do is I would object to your saying Kelsey put in more time than any other commissioner. When I was mayor, as you well know, I spent every lunch hour on the phone working with the city officials on problems. 4 years of lunch times. So I'll correct you on that. I come right now to almost every meeting. I have the benefit of being retired, so I have plenty of time. The only time I don't come is when I'm visiting grandkids. I will commit to coming to every meeting I possibly can and drag you along with me.
Deb?
I will attend what I can, which is what I'm doing now. So I know I thought a good job Kelsey's doing, what the planning commission's doing. But you have to be involved, not just showing up and just to be seen. You got to open your mouth and say something every now and then.
Houston?
Thanks for saying that last part today. I feel like showing up and being there, it's the default, it's part of the job. You know, it's when you sign up to be a commissioner, or you're lucky enough to serve as a commissioner, you don't sign up to be a commissioner. It's part of the job to show up and to be involved. With that being said, I would ask, to give some grace to our officials that are elected here, and give some grace to the people that give their time to this community. We all have life come up, and we all have things that come up in our lives, whether it's, visiting grandkids or sick kids or, whatever. But short answer is everything, if I'm elected. Everything I will go to if I'm elected. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Houston. Okay, another question from the audience. Do we have any more? We're at hour and a half now.
Oh, Jesus.
Motion's coming up.
Oh, Jesus.
It's all right.
My name's Sue Hoke, and I just want to know what you all think about the Townsend Activity Center. You say you want generations and families to participate here. What can we do? Do we have ball fields? Do we have football? Do we have pickleball?
I mean, that's a very popular sport right now. So is there any room for a Townsend Activity Center for everyone?
Thanks, Sue, and I think we'll start off with Becky.
I'm going to say right now, we just got the city park and the elementary school, their recreation field there, and Bethel Church has, a basketball court there. We need a park. I think once we get the master plan and everything, we can go for more grants. And with the grants, because we'll need to probably purchase some more property for that. And then also, any kind of playground or anything that we put in is going to cost money. So unless we can get donations from the community, but I really don't foresee anyone donating their property for a city park. So I think we're going to have to find revenue somehow to purchase land and get the things that we're going to be built on there. But something for the children or even adults, as you mentioned, pickleball and stuff like that, to get us active and out doing stuff and be more social and get out in the sun and be happier. But
Okay, thanks, Becky. Pat?
Kelsey has a plan to turn what used to be a storage barn at the city park into more of an activity center. Now, it won't be an indoor pickle court or anything like that, but it will be an activity center for children, for seniors, for citizens. One of the things that personally, I don't want to build a facility for recreation for tourists. I want it to be for citizens. And that means the city park's a good place because most people don't even know it's there, whether they're citizens or not. I think that city park is the way to get recreation for everybody. There's room for a basketball court. There's room for some kind of tennis, pickleball court, but right now it's very hilly, so it'll take a lot of work. And the parking is atrocious right now, so that would have to be improved. But it's a beautiful place, a lot of acreage. There's lots of possibilities there, so that's where I would try to do something. And I'd let Kelsey lead the way. Since she just came back in the room, she doesn't know what she's in for.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you. Houston?
I'm just going to agree with you.
Somebody write that down.
But I'm going to add one thing on top of it. And you mentioned the church that has the playground and stuff up here. I feel like we're back to talking about partnerships. You know, if we want the sort of things that are for adults, like pickleball or tennis or basketball, I mean, obviously kids can play that too, but you know, they're organized sports type things. I feel like we're talking about a partnership. You know, I think we all know that the amount of available land inside of the city is likely unlikely to be donated. Though I think a couple of years, some folks did try to donate stuff, and we weren't ready to accept it because it didn't have a Parks and Rec plan or a master plan or something. But that's neither here nor there. So I think we're one of two ways to accomplish this. It's
Again?
or by a partnership with some folks that already have a facility that we can help renovate, and that we could figure out how to make it best for our community.
Thanks, Houston. Dave?
Well, thank my wife for that great question. Townsend Activity Center. So yeah, I think it does center around a park, and I think that's charges led by the Parks and Rec Commission. But I think it needs to be a little bit better centered so the people, the residents have access to it. The problem with our park now, the reason you didn't know it was there is because of where it's at. So I understand that's our city park and they're making great strides, but imagine if that was down in the middle of the city and accessible. And it became, an activity center is basically a multi-generational facility. It's a park. I know exactly where she's going with this. She has an opportunity to play pickleball with my grandson, with our grandson. And that makes that multi-generational. They have to go to Maryland to find a center like that to do that. I see that I think it's not accessible up there. I see it more city-centered, like Railroad Museum. My vision is to ask the people that own the property next door to the Railroad Museum to donate to the city of Townsend. We don't know because we haven't asked them. There's probably a lot of things that we don't have answers to because we don't ask. But I would love to see that. Yeah, I understand we might have some people coming through town that would have access to it, but it would be used the majority of the time by the citizens and the families of Townsend. I would love to see that as a city center.
Thank you. All right, I'm taking note of the hour. I really want to thank the audience for a bunch of great questions. If anybody has anything burning, I'm happy to take one more. But otherwise, what I propose that we do, we're going to give the candidates 1 minute to make a closing statement, and then we will wrap it up. So, any other burning questions from the audience? You guys have been great. It's really important, and thank you for taking so much time to participate in this candidate forum. Okay, candidates. Last round, 1 minute, half the time, and we'll start with Pat.
What's the question, or what's?
This is your final closing statement, whatever you want to say. 1 minute.
I'm going to repeat some things, just so it's clear. I stand for the citizens, I stand for heritage, and I stand for preservation. Those are the things that I feel are important for the city to remain the peaceful side of the Smokies. I don't want it to just become a marketing slogan. I want to keep it the peaceful side of the Smokies. I want people to still be able to walk down the street. Lord knows we have a bunch of them on my street. They ride their bikes, they walk, they stop, and I want to continue that. But it takes preservation of the way we are. And I will stand for the citizens' preservation and heritage.
Ted?
I think basically we're all thinking the same thing. I don't want to articulate like Houston does, but I think everybody's thinking all the same times here is what we want to do. And it's save and protect Townsend.
Thanks, Ted. Houston.
1 minute. Hey, I'm running for this commission seat because, as we discussed here, we're at a critical junction point for town. We got to put the hard work in. We got to review our rules. Got to update our ordinances. We got to get ahead. I'm here to do the work. I want to do the work. My family is here. My young family is here. My extended family is here. We're going to be here for a long time, and I've never been one to sit on the sidelines. I like to be involved. I want to give back. And let's do this together. Just about the heritage of this community and the peaceful side. Our competitive advantage in this town, being a gateway town, is that we are peaceful and quiet, and that's absolutely the way it has to stay.
Thanks, Houston. Dave?
I'm gonna close with the reason I'm running is I'm ready to step up. I'm ready to serve my hometown with all my heart and soul. That's it.
Thank you. Becky?
I want to be your voice. I'll be coming around before the election day, August 1, and listening to you and seeing what you want and what you would like us to do. And if elected, I will try my hardest to do those things. And I'm a resident, not a business owner, so I want to do what my residents want.
All right, thank you. I want to thank all the candidates. I've heard a lot of good ideas tonight, some things I've never heard before. I was taking notes up there, and I would be pleased to serve with any of y'all. So thank you very much for all the great answers. We really appreciate it. It takes a lot of courage to come and to try to serve, and so I'm very grateful for all these folks out there. I'm grateful for all of you for taking time this evening, so I hope this was helpful. Thanks, and have a good evening.
Thank you for coming out, Nancy.